Before the first coin flip, before the first kickoff, you just gotta check out the Sideline Sizzle with the youngest sports commentator in American radio. Here's Tristan Blackman with a Sideline Sizzle.
Welcome to another edition of the Sideline Sizzle, brought to you by the City of Conway Parks and Recreation Department and the Biddle Law Firm. In terms of football news, there is no football news. Well, not for the most part anyway. We've hit that off-season lull period. It's summertime, and the only thing to report are training camp injuries that inevitably won't matter. So with that in mind, we'll be covering my predictions for the upcoming NFL regular season. Last week we looked at the NFC East, and this week we'll look at the AFC East. Both these divisions, I must admit, have been much more competitive than usual as of late. Even teams at the bottom of the bunch are putting up decent numbers. Anyway, we will kick things off with a look at the Buffalo Bills and their regular season schedule. Ever since they drafted Josh Allen, the Bills have witnessed winning season after winning season, and I understand why he could be considered overrated, but you can't deny the effect he's had on this team. Allen, by the way, was recently named the cover athlete for the next Madden game, Madden 24, so good for him. You know, I may be getting off track here, but why do we have to have a quarterback on the Madden cover every year? I'm ready for a change, to be brutally honest with you, because the last time there wasn't a quarterback on the Madden cover was 2018, when they released Madden 19. And you know who was on that cover? Antonio Brown. Get a load of that guy. He's gone off the deep end. Antonio Brown, he purchased an arena football team in the National Arena League, the Albany Empire, the same team which his dad played for when he played arena football. Well, he purchased that team a while ago, and the reason I'm bringing this up now is because the NAL actually kicked him out of the league. He kicked the Albany Empire, his team, out of the league just the other day. Yes, Antonio Brown got his team kicked out of the league, mostly because he wasn't making mandatory league payments. It was a whole mess. At this point, I don't know if Antonio Brown can do anything right. It seems like everything he gets involved in goes down in flames one way or another. Anyway, back to the Buffalo Bills. Got a totally sidetracked there, but hey, who doesn't love a little football news? The Bills in Week 1 of the upcoming 2023 NFL season will play the New York Jets. They'll be on the road in that game. I think in Week 1, heading into the MetLife Stadium, that the Jets' home crowd is going to be pumped. Aaron Rodgers will be looking to impress. I've got the Buffalo Bills picking up their first loss of the season in Week 1. Sounds a little crazy having the Bills lose their first matchup of the season. I think that game could go either way. Considering how tenacious Buffalo was in the opener last season against the Rams, who at that point were mostly not the same team we saw when they won the Super Bowl, but I think considering how the Bills opened the season last year, they could open the season in a big way this year and pick up a big win against their division rival. Moving on to Week 2, their first home game of the season, they played the train wreck that is the Las Vegas Raiders. They had some really solid draft picks, I'll give them that, but aside from that, the Raiders did not have a great offseason. They lost Derek Carr and replaced him with Jimmy Garoppolo, who, considering his foot surgery, isn't exactly 100% right now. Sure, he's got time to recover, but Week 2 against the Bills should be a loss for them, so I've got Buffalo taking this one in Week 2. Then, in Week 3, they've got another road date early in the season, this time against the Washington Commanders. Again, should be a game they can win, similar to the Raiders. There are bright spots on this team in some areas, but also a lot of question marks in other areas. I don't think Sam Howell is the answer to their quarterback needs, plus, with them no longer having Taylor Heineke, things could get ugly this season. Bills will win this game. Then in Week 4, the Bills will be tasked with facing another division rival in the Miami Dolphins. They'll be at home for this matchup. I think the Dolphins have a big year in 2023. I think Tua will try to stay healthy and really work on avoiding hits and getting the ball out quicker. With two speedsters in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, hopefully getting the ball out quickly isn't an issue for him. With that being said, I think the Dolphins in Week 4 will knock down the Bills. We saw last season they were very strong early on and then faded later in the year. Not saying they'll fade out in the midseason mark, but I do expect them to be very competitive early in the season. Give the Bills another loss here. In Week 5, the Bills will host the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars team we saw in the back end of last season was just a sample of their potential, and with additions like Calvin Ridley on the offense, I think Trevor Lawrence has a big year. I still don't know if they're quite ready to take down the Buffalo Bills here. It should be a relatively close game, though, but I have the Bills picking up a win here. So back in the win column, this is where I expect Buffalo to sort of go on a roll, because in Week 6, they play the New York Giants, and I have them winning that game. Then in Week 7, they play the Patriots, and Belichick could certainly cause problems for this team, but I anticipate that the Bills will sweep the Patriots this season, so give them another win there. Then in Week 8, they're at home against the Buccaneers. I'm not a believer in Baker Mayfield this season. If they couldn't get it done with Brady, then it will not happen with Mayfield. This game should be easy for Allen and the Bills, so I have them taking down the Bucs in Week 8. In Week 9, they probably have their toughest game up to this point in the Cincinnati Bengals. They'll be on the road for this game as well. They lost to the Bengals back in the postseason, 27-10. A very bad showing for Buffalo in that one. Personally, I think the Bengals will take them down again. They had a matchup in the regular season last year that was inevitably canceled, and even in that game, the Bills were struggling. The Bills are capable of beating Cincinnati, but I don't see it happening in Week 9. Then in Week 10, the Bills play the Denver Broncos. I can assure you they'll win this game, unless Russell Wilson does a complete 180 on his career and takes about 3 steps up from how he played last season. This game should be an easy one for Buffalo. Then in Week 11, it's a rematch against the New York Jets. The Bills, leaving their opening season loss behind them, should take care of business here at home in Buffalo. I've got them winning in Week 11. Moving into Week 12, this is the point where Buffalo's schedule really ramps up. They play some very competitive teams in the final stretch of the year, and in Week 12, they are on the road in Philadelphia to face the Eagles. I have the Eagles winning that game. I think it's possible for Buffalo to get a win here, but realistically, I think Philly is the better team on paper. Luckily for Buffalo, their bye week is conveniently placed in Week 13, giving them a chance to really settle down before the final stretch of the season intensifies. In Week 14, it's their playoff rival in the Kansas City Chiefs, and they will be in Kansas City for this game. I think fresh off the bye week, it is possible that they defeat the Chiefs like they did last season. I think it will be a very close game at the least. However, I've got the Chiefs winning this game, giving the Bills another loss. So moving into Week 15, back-to-back losses with the bye week in between, the Bills will face the Dallas Cowboys. At this point in the season, this is when the Buffalo Bills will truly pivot and find their groove for the playoffs. I'd expect maybe a loss or two. There's always room for mistakes with an already decent season record, but the Bills will tighten up from here on. So Week 15, I have them beating the Dallas Cowboys, followed by another win against the Chargers in Week 16. Then in Week 17, they play the Patriots. This game could be close with New England battling for a playoff spot, but I have Buffalo winning here too. And finally, to close out the season, their last matchup of the season coming against the Miami Dolphins. They'll be in Miami for this game, and assuming it'll be about early January, the heat won't be nearly as brutal as it was last year. So I have the Bills finishing strong, going on a 4-game win streak, heading into the postseason, and beating the Miami Dolphins here in Week 18. And with that, the Buffalo Bills would be finishing the season with a final record consisting of 12 wins and 5 losses. They can perform better than this, I believe. It wouldn't shock me if they finish in that 13 to 14 win range, and I think at the very least they've got 10 solid wins in them. However, I think 12 and 5 fits the current state of this team. They lost some talented players in the offseason, but also picked up some studs both offensively and defensively, which should help them out in 2023. Moving on to our next AFC East team, the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins, already with a pretty solid roster, managed to make several big additions in the offseason, such as acquiring corner Jalen Ramsey from the Los Angeles Rams. I think with the weapons they have on offense, Tua Tagovailoa is going to make another splash this season. I'm giving the Dolphins a bold prediction this season. We saw the Dolphins practically burn out last season there in the end. This season should be different for them, though. Assuming Tua is healthy, I think they've got at least a 10-win season. I think they'll land in the 12-win range when it's all said and done. I know this is a talented team, and I see a lot of people sleeping on the Dolphins, and that should not be the case because they are a very fast team and a very talented team. So let's dive into their schedule. Week 1, they will face the Los Angeles Chargers. I think the Los Angeles, being predominantly healthy at this point in the year, will be tough. Not to mention, new offensive coordinator for them and a new deep threat wide receiver in Quentin Johnson. So there's so much to consider with this Chargers team. They seem special to me. I think they'll be a bit challenging to take down for the Dolphins in Week 1, so I have the Dolphins losing this game. Then in Week 2, the Dolphins will play the New England Patriots. With this being a road game, along with Miami potentially working out some rough spots both offensively and defensively, I have them taking a second straight loss here in Week 2. The Patriots and Dolphins split last season. They also kept the score pretty close, so while I think Miami can easily take down New England, I have them losing 2 straight to open the season. While this is a very rough start, and I mentioned Miami usually starts the season off strong, I have them going on quite the stretch of wins from this point on. In Week 3, they face my Denver Broncos. I think this will be a competitive game, but I expect Miami to come into this game being at home and really dominate offensively. This could be a close game with Denver's defense, likely performing at a high level, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's a blowout. I've got the Dolphins winning this game in Week 3. Then in Week 4, they are on the road to face the Bills. I think after their game against Denver, they'll really start to heat things up, and I have them taking down the Bills here in Buffalo. In Week 5, they go up against the Giants. This game could be close, but definitely a matchup that Miami has the advantage in. I have them picking up another win in Week 5, putting them above 500. Week 6, they have a date with the Carolina Panthers, going up against a young quarterback in Bryce Young. He's bound to make mistakes with both Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard lurking in the secondary. I think Young is relatively safe with the football, but the Panthers are outmatched, even if he plays a perfect game. So give me the Dolphins in this one. Now, Week 7, they play the Philadelphia Eagles. Last week, we covered the NFC East. I had them winning this game, but I actually revised my prediction for this game. I think Philly takes this one. Not only will they be on the road for this game, but the Eagles are just a very tough team, and I feel I kind of lowballed them last week, giving them a 12-5 record. So Miami takes a loss here in Week 7, but I expect them to just shrug it off and get back to winning just before the bye week. Week 8, they have a rematch with the Patriots, so they'll be at home, and I have them winning that game. Then Week 9, I made a bold prediction. I have the Dolphins taking down the Kansas City Chiefs. Tyreek Hill playing against his former team, getting a little bit of revenge, and blazing past that Chiefs secondary. As long as Tua performs well, this is a winnable game for Miami. Then, after the bye week in Week 10, Miami has a matchup against the Raiders in Week 11. Should be an easy win for them there. Week 12, they are on the road to face the New York Jets. I have the Dolphins winning here on the road. Likely going to be a tough game for them, as the Jets could potentially be just as good as Miami this coming season. Then in Weeks 13 and 14, I have them picking up 2 more wins against Washington and the Tennessee Titans. This comes just before their rematch with the Jets in Week 15, where I have them losing at home. As I said, New York is a competitive team, and they have a chance to get a huge win against Miami in this game, even being on the road. Week 16, Miami will face the Cowboys. It could be a tough game for them, but I think they are capable of beating Dallas here. I've got them winning this one. Then, another tough game in Week 17. They face the Baltimore Ravens. Who knows if Lamar will be healthy or not at this point in the season. If he is, then this game will be a whole lot tougher, but I still have the Dolphins picking up a win here. Then, in the final week of the season, the Dolphins will face the Buffalo Bills, and hypothetically, at this point in the season, they'd have already beaten the Bills once. Yet this time, I have the Bills getting the last laugh and knocking down Miami to close out the season. And with that final game, that would give Miami a final record of 12 wins with 5 losses, tying the Bills in the win category for their division, hopefully heading into the postseason. Alright, we covered both the Bills and Dolphins schedule for the upcoming regular season. The both of them I have finishing at 12-5. These are just predictions after all, so I don't expect to hit on all my predictions, but for the most part, I anticipate Miami and Buffalo to finish with around 12 or so wins. Up next, we'll finish our look at the AFC East when we cover the New England Patriots and the New York Jets. We'll cover that right after this, as you're listening to the Sideline Sizzle, brought to you by the City of Conway Parks and Recreation Department and the Biddle Law Firm.
We're talking football. You got a problem with that? This is the Sideline Sizzle.
Welcome back to the Sideline Sizzle, brought to you by the City of Conway Parks and Recreation Department and the Biddle Law Firm. We've been looking at the upcoming regular season and breaking down each team's schedule by division. Last segment, we covered the Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins in the AFC East. Right now, we will wrap up the AFC East by taking a peek at the New England Patriots and the New York Jets. We will look at the New England Patriots first. They've got somewhat of a challenging schedule, to say the least. Somewhat might be a bit of an understatement, considering they have to face the Bills, Dolphins, and Jets twice, all teams that are either on the come-up or are already established contenders. They also have to play teams like the Chiefs and the Eagles, which could definitely cause them problems this season. So, let's dive into the Patriots' schedule. Week 1, they play none other than the Philadelphia Eagles. I think this is pretty obviously a loss for New England. I can understand how some might consider this a close game based on New England's defense and it being early in the season. With Jalen Hurts in command of the offense, Philadelphia shouldn't have many issues against the Patriots though, so chalk up a loss for New England. Then in Week 2, the Patriots face the Dolphins at home. Last season they split with the Dolphins, earning both a win and a loss. I think they have the potential to do the same thing this season. While New England isn't a bad team, I definitely am uncertain of whether or not they can fully compete with some of the other teams in their division. I do feel comfortable giving New England a win here in Week 2, but don't be shocked if Miami sweeps them this season. Moving on to Week 3, on the road against the Jets, I think with Aaron Rodgers in command, the Patriots will fall to the Jets at least once, and with it being an early road game, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to New York, so give New England a loss here. In Week 4, the Patriots will face the Dallas Cowboys. This is another away game for them, and I think Dallas is the better team, mostly on the offensive side of the ball compared to last season. I really wouldn't want either quarterback, to be honest, but given the choice between Mac Jones and Dak Prescott here, I'm taking Dak to win it, so another loss for New England. In Week 5, though, the Patriots will be back home to face the Saints. I think this is a game they can win, and I have them doing so here in Week 5. I also have them winning in Week 6 against the Raiders, a team I have very little hope for this season. Week 7 is their first date with the Buffalo Bills, so I don't think the Patriots will manage to beat Buffalo, even on their own turf. So that's a loss for the Patriots here. Week 8 is their second matchup with the Dolphins, and this time I have Miami winning it because at this point I think the Dolphins will be in midseason form, ready to rock and roll in Hard Rock Stadium. So for Week 8, I'm giving yet another loss to New England. The schedule prediction so far seems a bit grim, but New England has a nice opportunity to pick up some much-needed wins just before the bye week, so in Weeks 9 and 10, I have them picking up wins against both Washington and the Colts. Following the Week 11 bye, the Patriots will face the New York Giants. This game could always go the other way with Brian Daboll looking to have another great season, but I have the Patriots winning here in Week 12. Week 13 is a game against the Chargers for New England. I could see how Belichick might work his magic and exit this game with a win, but I'm doubtful it will happen. Another loss for the Patriots here. The Patriots will move on to face the Steelers in Week 14, a game that they are capable of winning, and I have them doing so despite how tough Pittsburgh is defensively. Then in Week 15, a brutal game against the Chiefs for New England. I'm very doubtful of the Patriots this season. It just doesn't seem like this season will work out for them, and I don't think this game against Kansas City will work out for them either. In Week 16, they face the Broncos, and if I know my Denver Broncos, they'll find a way to lose this game. I don't imagine Russell Wilson performs very well in this matchup, so I have the Patriots getting a win here. Then to close out the season in Weeks 17 and 18, the Patriots will face the Bills, followed by the Jets, and I have them losing both those matchups to finish the year. A less than desirable season for the Patriots because, well, they're finishing at 8 wins and 9 losses. This is a very grim prediction. There are aspects of this Patriots team that I like, but if Mac Jones doesn't step up this season, I imagine my prediction won't be far off. I think a lot of pressure falls on Jones this year with this upgraded offensive system and competent play calling. I would hope he performs a bit better. If not, well, he might have a fruitful career as a backup quarterback going forward. The last team we will look at is the New York Jets, a team that showed flashes of their potential last season, especially on defense. This is the most excited a lot of Jets fans have been in years. I can see a legitimate scenario where New York finishes second in the division. Personally, I think that first place belongs to either the Bills or the Dolphins, but maybe Aaron Rodgers has another MVP caliber season and proves me wrong. Anyway, we'll jump right in and start with Week 1 when the Jets open the season against the Buffalo Bills. I think being at home in Week 1 is good for the Jets. The crowd should be pumped, and they're ready to win. I can't think of a better start to the season than taking down the Bills in Week 1, and that is exactly how I have New York starting the year. This initial stretch of the season is challenging, though, I won't lie, because in Week 2 they face another playoff contender in the Dallas Cowboys. Week 2, on the road, facing the Cowboys just doesn't sound thrilling to me. I think the Jets lose here to the Cowboys in Week 2. Their matchup in Week 3 against the Patriots should go well. I think they will finally find themselves no longer struggling against New England. Last year they lost to the Patriots twice, but this year I think they can sweep them. Moving on to Week 4, the Jets have a tough one against the Chiefs. I could be wrong, the Jets could pull off something crazy, but I don't think they're ready for the Chiefs quite yet. In Week 5, the Jets get a bit of a break from the ultra-competitive teams to face the Denver Broncos. Denver could cause problems for New York. I've seen several predictions in which New York actually loses this game, but I'm not one of them. I love Denver, but I'm taking a realistic approach this season, and I've got the Jets taking the win here in Week 5. Week 6 is yet another tough matchup, though, this time against the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, not sure if the Jets are ready for teams like this, so I'm giving them a loss here. Following the bye week in Week 7, the Jets will face the Giants, and coming fresh off the bye, I think the Jets can win this game, but I actually have them losing here. After that initial rush stretch of games, winning should be a bit easier for New York, as the rest of their schedule is an absolute cakewalk. Week 9, they played the Chargers, and not that this is by any means an easy game, but I think they can outpace the Chargers. I've got New York winning here. Then, Week 10, they play the Raiders, another game they should win. Week 11 is tricky because they have a rematch with the Bills, and they'll be on the road, so I have them losing here. But in Week 12, they are at home against the Dolphins, and I think this will be an exciting game, a very competitive game, but one that the Jets should be able to pull off. New York lacks the same degree of speed that Miami has, but with contributors like Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, the list goes on, the Jets can win here in Week 12. Week 13 is another home game against the Atlanta Falcons here, and this should be a game that the Jets manage to win. I'm still skeptical of Desmond Ridder for the Falcons. I think the running game with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier will improve this offense, but in the end, the Jets will get the better of this team. Week 14 is a matchup against the Houston Texans. Without question, a win for the Jets here. Then in Week 15, the Jets will face the Dolphins yet again, this time in Miami. And because the Dolphins are bound to have a good season this year, I'm splitting the series and giving a win to the Dolphins here. Then to close out the season in Week 16, 17, and 18, I have the Jets finishing strong, picking up wins against the Commanders, Browns, and finally, the New England Patriots. Yes, I do have them sweeping the Patriots this year, beating them in both games. I think it happens with Aaron Rodgers, and with all of that, the New York Jets finally managed to pull off a winning season with 11 wins and just 6 losses. This might be a bold prediction, but the Jets have great pieces in all the right places. I liked what they did this offseason bringing in Rodgers. The draft could have been better for them, but to be fair, they only needed help on the offensive line for the most part. Anyway, the New York Jets, depending on how the rest of the league falls, potentially playoff bound for the first time since a long time ago. We'll just leave it at that. That was my prediction for the 2023 NFL regular season featuring the AFC East. We cover the Bills, Dolphins, Patriots, and Jets. This division is going to be very competitive this year. Don't be surprised if every team in the East manages to have a winning season. It's a real possibility, and I'm excited to see how it all shakes up. Anyway, that is all we've got for today's show. Thank you for tuning in, as you've been listening to the Sideline Sizzle, brought to you by the City of Conway Parks and Recreation Department and the Biddle Law Firm. We'll catch you next week.